You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where it's our privilege to show up with you each and every week to share stories, ideas, conversations to get you moving, get you thinking, get you reflecting on where you've been, where you're headed, and hopefully how you can make the world around you a little bit better. Right? Because our mission is to be the most impactful podcast in the world, and that means our community doesn't just listen to the stories, doesn't just listen to the messages, but we act. We look for self-improvement. We look for ways to make people around us better. We look for ways to make our world what we really want it to become. And we accept the responsibility that nobody else is going to do it for us. And that leads us into this week's conversation with our guest, Erin Mann, a former FBI analyst turned founder of Erin's Elderberries. She created this after her son faced a health crisis, and she just didn't pivot careers from being an FBI agent to natural medicine. She launched a movement around natural healing, small business mentorship, and just what we're after, building community support. From tactical intelligence to handcrafted wellness, Erin brings us a story of grit, impact, and purpose that's sure to inspire. So before we bring Erin on the show, please help us out. Get over, like, subscribe, share on your favorite social media platforms, on YouTube. Simply comment. If you like this video on YouTube, if you like this show on your favorite podcast app, just give us a thumbs up, say you liked it. You see us on social, make a quick comment. You'd be amazed at how much little small things like that really help us reach more people and continue on our path to be the most impactful podcast in the world. So thank you for doing that. Now, enjoy this week's conversation with our guest, Erin Mann. First responders, your strength, speed, and safety matter. That's why Veritas Athletic Performance delivers remote training built just for you. Led by Coach Matt Erdman, a 14-year law enforcement veteran and certified coach, our programs focus on movement, not just muscle, to boost performance and cut injury risk. Through the Train Heroic app, your training is personalized, monitored, and adapted wherever you are. Train smarter, serve stronger, and protect what matters most. Veritas Athletic Performance, your readiness is our mission. Erin, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being you, my friend. Thank you for the courage to face what you've been facing in life and to share that story and the journey with all of us so we can learn and be part of it. So I always want to recognize our guests for doing that, right? Because nobody can learn from our stories unless we're willing to share them.
Very true.
So thank you for doing that. And I'm excited to get you. It's not very often I get to sit down with an FBI professional and be analyzed a little bit.
There we go. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and, right back at you. When I learned your prior law enforcement, career, it just, makes it even that more fun.
What do you think it is about transitioning out of law enforcement to any aspect of life that when you find somebody else that has that background that's also in a similar niche, there's just a camaraderie there? Why do you think that is?
I think it's probably because in any law enforcement field that you're in, whether it be federal, state, local, anything like that, the theme is the same, right? You're encountering the same types of people, whether they be good guys or bad guys. You are innately just drawn to help your community and help keep others, safe. And when you have that commonality, I think it's when you come in contact with the people you have things in common with, like naturally, it's just naturally easy to talk and be around them. But also you understand from law enforcement, how you can't talk about some things, how there is, just some things that are understood that, they're not spoken, and that other person has been through that in some form or fashion as well. So they understand what your family is feeling or your friends may, think. And so it just makes it easy to, talk to people like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's that baseline. Another thing I love, like meeting someone like you, Erin, and many of the people we're blessed to meet is I love coming across folks that aren't afraid to reinvent themselves, right? And I love to share that message, not just with law enforcement or first responders or military, but anybody that just because you've done something in the past doesn't mean that's all you're going to do.
Yep. That is 100%. I mean, because I am one, I'm living like proof of that, but I am definitely the person that didn't believe that. And
Mm.
I've been shown that since I had, my son and over the last 10 years because I only thought I was ever going to be in the bureau. My mom and dad were both in the bureau, so it was all I ever knew. I couldn't imagine ever doing anything else. And I wouldn't know what life would be like outside of the world I lived in until I had my child. And, it was, okay, well, what do I do now? How do I make like normal friends? How do I be like a real like adult here? And I kind of went through that when I had my son of like, well, who am I now? Like I'm now a mom and a wife. I'm not, a person who works undercover or travels the world anymore, helping keep people safe. And for a little bit, I was kind of like, this is not right. But in the end, like I said, 10 years later, I'm 1000% comfortable. And I very much believe that you can reinvent yourself or, do something than what you originally planned you were going to do. And it's 1000% okay.
Oh, I love that so much. And I want to get into that because I think sometimes we trap ourselves by creating this plan for our lives, right? Like we're going to finish school, we're going to go to this college, we're going to get this career, and a lot of times the best part of our lives is not anything we planned. It's just what happens and how we react to it.
Absolutely. And you're 1000% right. Yes. So that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Erin, before we get into this stuff now, before we get too heavy here, I got to warm you up. I got to make sure we're both on the same page. I got to make sure the audience knows who is Erin and who's talking to her. Are you ready for this warm up?
Sure thing.
All right, here we go. You get one word to describe yourself. What's your word?
Okay, I'm not ready. How about
No,
that?
you're
Not ready.
ready. You're ready, my friend.
One word to describe myself. Determined. I think
Ooh,
that's the one word, determined.
I love it. What's a favorite quote?
Favorite quote. You can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time.
Mm, that's a good one. Where'd you come across that one at?
So I like to tell people that that's what I have always said because I very much believe in it. But it's funny, I was reading an article in Forbes 2 weeks ago, and it was actually a quote by Steve Jobs, I think,
Mhm.
or something. So I may have like heard it and resonated and really didn't know that I had heard it. But yeah, it's a quote by some famous bazillionaire. But I very firmly have always believed that.
Mm, that's a
And I'm
good one.
living that right now. So that's also why it's my favorite quote.
Yeah, no, it's so powerful. If your life has a theme song, what's your song?
Uh, oh man. I would say that's hard because one, I'm really bad at knowing the names of songs or like who like sings them. But oh God. Yeah, you should have prepared me for that one.
No, no
I will say
preparation.
though, I would purposefully pick something that's like written by ZZ Top or Tonic or like something like that that describes my life because that just seems to always be what I connect with. So
Nice.
to kind of like pass on that one just because I wouldn't be able to figure it out unless you gave me time to
Oh,
think.
I'm just envisioning you jamming some bearded long beards and ZZ Top.
Oh yeah, I'm an 80s kid, man. So yeah.
What's a favorite book?
Favorite book. Hmm. So I don't read a lot unless I am reading like legal jargon of some kind. But when I do read, I read things that are lighthearted. I don't want to say like funny, but just kind of like lighthearted and fun.
So you,
And I have a favorite author. Her name is Carla Fergo. She's actually locally, like here in Warrenton, and her series is called Lily Barlow. So it's a murder mystery kind of series with like some fun like built in. But what I love is that she took inspiration from where she grew up and then created this character. And now it's 3 books into the series, and you can keep kind of learning and growing with her character. So that's like my favorite book right now is that. She's doing a fourth, so I'm like impatiently waiting.
oh, nice. All right, you get to have dinner with one person. Who do you want to have dinner with, and what do you want to ask them?
Living or just like literally anyone?
You pick.
Uh, that's like, honestly, I would say my papa because he died too young. And I don't want to get like emotional about it, but I just didn't get to know enough about him when I had the opportunity to. I like have learned a lot since, and I also know like getting older, you appreciate the things that you didn't or you realize you should have appreciated them. And if I had the opportunity, I would pick him because now I want to know like so much that I never took the time, even though I did want to know then, I never took the time to ask.
Yeah. That's so common, right? Like when you're around them as a young person, you don't have the experience to know what questions to ask, or you don't create the time to do it. And then by the time you have the life experience to want to know this, a lot of times we've missed the window.
Yeah. Yes. And I have learned so much from my family. I think from the time I was 25, to now. And he was one of my best friends, like growing up. So I can only imagine, like in this stage of my life, or,
Hmm.
just going through starting a business and all of that, like how much that would have helped as well, just being able to have his mentorship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I guess the journey we're all on, right? Is
Yeah.
you never know, but what I do love is when you reflect on that and spend time there, it makes you realize what you have with the younger generation,
Hmm.
and give them your time and the stories,
Oh,
and
yes.
at least try to create another balance there.
Yeah. Yes. I very much take the time to try. I tell my son, listen, you're not going to believe this, but just trust me.
Right.
You're going to want to have had this experience. You're going to want to have spent this time with, this person or that person. Just do it right now for me to where I will know when you're older, you'll look back and say, you know what, my mom was right.
Mm.
And he won't have missed out on it.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Well, let's. Are you feeling warmed up, Aaron?
I think so. Yeah.
Let's segue to your son because that's a pivotal point in your life.
Yeah.
So, could you mind sharing that story with us?
Yeah, so I was a person who really wasn't going to have kids. I was going to be director of the FBI by the time I was 35. I just had like all of these plans, to be in law enforcement for forever. I was going to live and die by the FBI, as they used to say. I know things are a lot different, but that's like all I wanted to do. The only thing I ever pictured. And then I came up to Quantico and ended up meeting my husband, not in government work or anything like that, but ended up meeting him up in DC. And we got married and we had a child. It was very difficult for us to have him. So that's like a whole other conception journey. We lost a few before we had Lucas. The one right before him actually almost took my life. I had an ectopic that ruptured and lost half of my body's blood by the time they got me on the operating table. So us having a family was very hard. But we didn't give up and Lucas, came along. So we call him our miracle baby. And I also say that God decided one child and one boy was enough. It was all I would be able to handle. Because we did subsequently lose a few after Lucas. So he truly is, like I said, a gift from God and a miracle. And, I always say we spoil him, but we do not spoil him rotten. Like we're not going to let him grow up and be, a spoiled brat. But we are going to let him know, how much of a miracle he is like to us. And I think, to the world, because all kids are very special. So when we had him, I decided to retire from the Bureau. I was already vested. I'd had about 15 years in. So I decided I'm a very all or nothing person. So if I can't, roam the world, because I was traveling about 360 days out of the year, and I wanted to then stay at home and kind of protect my own family. And so I retired from the Bureau and became a stay-at-home mom. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like my how Lucas, came to be. I was never ever planning on really having kids or ever leaving the Bureau, but things change when you hold your child in your arms for the first time.
And what was it? What was the biggest obstacle you had in allowing yourself to make that change?
Uh, wondering if it was okay. And by that, I mean, I would have some people in the office. And what's funny is it would be like women, not to get into like men versus women or anything like that, but women would actually come up to me that would hear that I was leaving and be like, you have a master's and a PhD and you've been doing this for like so long and you're just letting everything go to waste. And I would get so like caught back by that. At first, I really didn't respond. And then I decided that needs a response because people need to educate themselves or to think in different ways, right? That's why we have discussions. And, I finally just started saying, if I can use my knowledge, my education, my experiences, and make sure that I help raise one person in this world that is kind, that is caring, that is smart, that also wants to be knowledgeable and educated and wants to do good in the world, I've done more than my job, because my job here in the Bureau is keeping people safe, but we also have to ensure that our world goes on, right? By learning and doing and creating and, making our world a better place. So if I can help in at least one of those people, I think I'm doing a great job at that and nothing is wasted. And when I started responding that way, the reactions were completely different. And they would kind of pause and they'd be like, you know, I wish I could be able to do that with my kids. So I
Mm.
don't think it was more they actually thought it was a waste. It was more of, I wish I could actually put that effort, into my children as well, maybe, or that they maybe internally weren't thinking they were doing a good enough job, which as a parent, you're doing the best job you can at all times, regardless of where you are. So it just, it made me think of things a little differently, but then it also, I hope inspired thought in other people, as well.
Yeah, and at least plant a seed for thought, right? Because you're so right, man. When we stay in this comparison mode and we're comparing what we're doing or what somebody else is doing, it's just not a good, healthy place to be in.
Right, exactly.
And nobody thrives there, right? Like nobody gets inspired when we spend time comparing.
Yeah, right. And the thing that was hard for me was I was comparing to myself. I wasn't comparing me to anyone else. I was comparing the new me to the old me, to the pre-pregnancy me. And I was like, who am I now? If I can't go and do this, if I can't do that, yes, I have this purpose of this child, but what else? What else am I, supposed to do? And I did really kind of struggle with that, not, going and doing all of the time. Instead, I was at home and, cycles of feeding and getting up. And I was used to not sleeping in the middle of the night because of some of the, missions we did and things. So, which really prepared me for motherhood for having a new baby. But it was like one day I was one person and the next day, I was a completely different person. And it was like, okay, well, if the Bureau or that law enforcement kind of mentality has always been me since I was little, who am I now? And I really struggled with that for about a year and a half. My husband actually ended up really helping me with that. I tell him, I'm like, it's the one thing I will admit that I listened to you and so that that you were right on. So yeah, so for me, it was the comparison of just to myself, more than anything.
Can you share with us some of those conversations you had when you are trying to figure out who you are going to be again?
Yeah, so, of course it's been like almost 10 years, so it's a little hard to remember like the exact, but it was more of, am I enough? Am I
Mm.
doing enough? Because also, as a first-time mom, you're told all the time you're not doing enough, you're not enough, you're doing it wrong, you should listen to this, you should listen to that. So it was coming from, okay, I came from some place that I was really, really good at my job to a place where I'm literally just watching a child's, chest go up and down to make sure he's still alive every 5 minutes. You're being told like, oh, don't burp them too soon after this, or make sure the bottle is exactly, this temperature. So a lot of the conversations to myself were, okay, I think I'm doing okay. Am I doing okay? I'm not sure because I don't have any other like, mom friends, so to speak. Because everyone in the Bureau, kind of didn't have children either, the ones that I worked with. I don't have anyone I can call. I could call my mom, but also, again, 80s kids. She's like, yeah, it'll be fine. There was not, they didn't worry, or have the technologies, that we did. And so, yeah, a lot of that was the conversation was just, I don't know. Am I doing it right? I don't know. That was pretty much just a constant, in my head.
And I think so many of us face that, right? Whether no matter
Oh
what
yeah.
aspect we're in it, when we recreate is wondering, was it the right move? Are we doing enough? Who am I going to become? Because they're in that transition stage, you're rediscovering almost.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, it was a 100%. It was rediscovering what I liked outside of what my career was, because the job that I had and what I did, it 100% was you, like, everything. And I was very comfortable, in that. That's what I had wanted and had envisioned for my life. And when you step out of that, it's okay, well, do I still like to play tennis? I haven't played tennis in,
Mm.
like 15 years, or just anything, like that. And my husband finally one day said to me, and this was kind of on the precipice of what we had went through with Lucas that kind of started my company. But he looked at me and he said, all you at your heart like to help people. He said, whether or not, like, you recognize that, he's like, you were in junior league when you were in college, you did like all of these volunteer like service things. He said, at the base, you are just someone who loves and cares and wants to help people, whether that be in the bureau where you're working CICT. He's like, that's what you like mainly did. So that's what you just created your identity around. He said, but your core is just you want to help people. And as soon as he said that, it was, I'm like, why couldn't you say that to me like a year ago? Like, why couldn't you come up with that sooner? Because, he really helped me in those discussions realize that's who I was, that I was not the bureau, the work was not me. I was actually just a caring person who just needed some kind of an outlet to help people.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And that's what led you to launch your business.
It is. Yeah. Lucas, like, very short Cliff Notes version. My son got sick when he was 1. They thought that he had leukemia, which he did not, thank the Lord. But and it was actually his first birthday. So he got super sick. We were actually visiting family in Florida. So we are going to have a big 1 year, party that a lot of people have for their kiddos at 1. And he just spiked super high fevers all week. Our pediatrician up here told us to, time to go to the emergency room because it's been like a full week. So we did. And before we knew it, we were being driven by ambulance to the oncology floor of a children's hospital that was about 2 hours away. And on the eve of his first birthday, we're, walking in, they're rolling him in, and the oncologist is waiting for us in his room with like just these mounds of papers. And they said, the treatment, we have to test him, we have to do a bone marrow tap and all that to test. But the problem was that leukemia treatment for a child 365 days and lower was one thing, one protocol. The treatment for over 365 days was completely different. And the oncologist said, we want the less than the other protocol, the one for not 365 days. There's a higher success rate. It's easier on the body. And of course, I don't know if that's how it is still, because again, 10 years later, but
Sure.
we were basically like signing our lives away, we assume, because we're like, yes, do, we're trusting in you to do, whatever you need. And ended up, he did not have leukemia. He had a virus that mimics leukemia in the blood. They still kept him there because they said it was actually a blessing he ended up there, because if he had contracted like any virus, bacteria, anything else, it could have actually killed him, because his body had no way to fight any infection whatsoever. But after that, he just stayed sick like
Mm.
all of the time. His little immune system was just wrecked. He couldn't go outside and within 40 feet of somebody without catching some germ. And, like I said, that first time mom, you have to listen to everyone else. So we were going to 4 specialists, 4 different doctors. We're like, oh, we just have to wait it out. We just have to see. We'll, just keep giving him these medicines. He was on 4 medications a day, all of which were not prescribed for children under the age of 6. And at 1, he was taking all of these. And I assumed that I had to listen to them, that they had to tell me what was right for my child, because I'm a first time mom. I really don't know. And we've just been through this horrific, experience. And one day, just randomly, just so randomly, one of the doctors looked at me and said, we're just going to have to wait it out. There's nothing you can do. And I looked at him and I said, I am a stay-at-home mom. I am a very highly educated woman. I can go to the end of earth in Google and weed out, what's right, what's not, what's peer reviewed, who financed this study. Like I understand how to do research. Tell me what I need to do for this child. And he was just like, there's nothing. And some like little spark in me just, went off. And I was like, that is unacceptable. And we just like walked out. I drove my son home, put him down for a nap. And I'm pretty sure I just went into super focus, just started researching, reading anything I could get my hands on, keyword search this, looking at that. And yeah, I basically created an elderberry syrup for my child based on all of this research that I did. Told my husband we were going to give it 6 months, see what happened, that it couldn't hurt him. And by that 6 month, all four of our specialists we were released from. He wasn't on any of his medication anymore. Our family did a complete 180. And because of that journey, I decided I wanted to help at first other moms to give them the courage and the knowledge that they could say, this is not good enough for me, and work to do something different, that they were allowed to disagree, that they could have a say in how their family is being treated, really anyway, medically, educationally, really anyway, because I felt as a first-time mom that my voice was silenced, that I was just told like, oh, we know what we're doing, you don't. And so I started a blog really about it. And it wasn't really about the elderberry. It was about just finding your voice as a mom or a parent,
Mhm.
really. And then the demand for the elderberry syrup came after because apparently a lot of people were having the same issues as my son. And Erin's Elderberries was born like right after that.
What when did you know that the path of research for Lucas's ailments to get Lucas where you wanted him was more than just a detour in your life, but actually part of your new mission?
Uh, you're gonna find this funny and it may not make sense to you or literally anyone listening. The moment I realized that was my dad was actually diagnosed with type 2. Like I said, federal agent, for all of his life, always healthy, always working out. And he was diagnosed with type 2. And he is the kind of man, he will always listen to his doctors, always will, do the right thing. But he was flat out, I'm not taking that. You're not giving me that. And tough crap, basically. He was just
Mhm.
like, I'm not taking medicine. But he came to me and was like, this is like what's happening. He's like, how do I figure this out? Because he knew I had been doing a lot of research in like the health realm, looking at a lot of things. I actually, to have Lucas did a lot of organic things, like kind of changed my body a little bit and what I was doing. So he came to me and he's like, can you help me with this? And I'm like, I mean, I guess I'm like Google, type 2, symptom, I was like looking at everything. But what I found out was, that research expert in me, I'm really good at doing that and compiling all of this stuff and sifting through it. And I'm the kind of person that will tape like 57 pages, on my wall and have the little red string, like you see in the movies. I am definitely that person. And so I kind of came up with a plan for my dad of eating and exercise and things of that. And I said, hey, don't know if this is going to work, but according to everything I'm reading, this should work for you. And you have to let your body, recycle every 3 months for them to test your A1C, to know like how your blood sugar is, not just at that moment, but over time as your cells regenerate. And we got him back within normal levels within that time. So
Mm.
he fully was able to manage his type 2 between diet and exercise and kind of the stuff that I was telling him or how to do things. And 9 years later, or 8 years later, still fully managed. So it was really at that point that I said, you know what? I've helped my son, I've helped my dad, like who else can I help? Like what can I do? Granted, like not a doctor, not like, I do not want to go back to school. I do not like blood, I don't
Yeah.
want to do like, I don't want to be a dietitian. I don't do it, but like how, can I help? And it was really, talking about that journey of like, one of finding your confidence as like a mom, but then also us generations, the sandwich generation, whatever, you're still taking care of your kids, and now eventually you're going to be taking care of your parents as
Mhm.
well. And how do you accomplish that, in a good and meaningful, less stressful, way? So when I started talking more and more about that, like on my blog, and like I said, it started becoming like flu season, and people were like, well, we want to try your elderberry. And you're also talking about how elderberry is good for diabetics. So, elderberry, all of a sudden just seemed to be like the common theme. And so I started making it for people and just like giving it to them and sharing it. And again, here's where the husband comes in, and it's like, whoa, hang on. People are like consuming things. We need like insurance. I'm sure if you're going to sell it, you need like a business. You're going to have to do this like the right way. One, because we can't afford for you to just give this to everyone. And he's like, but you're going to have to potentially maybe create a business where we can get insurance, we can cover ourselves, and you can really share it however you see fit. So that was kind of between my dad and then everyone on the blog kind of starting to ask about elderberry at the same time. That's how the business started kind of really rapidly.
And it went pretty quick for you.
It did. So I really just wanted to go to a farmer's market 2 weekends out of the month, get some vitamin D, be in the sun, talk to other adults about something other than, baby food, baby poop, diaper, like anything that wasn't mom related, right? I wanted to just have some away time. It was my time to be away from the home. My husband and Lucas could, spend time together, just them. And I thought it was like a great idea. And it was. But by my third month, I was full time at 3 other farmers markets, not just, every other weekend. It was all weekends. I had hired, brought on board some other stay-at-home moms who were looking to make money for their family, but also in a very easy way. So the husbands or their dads could be at home, with the
Hmm.
kiddos or take them to their sports stuff. And then they could, come to the farmer's market and work. And it wasn't impacting their normal kind of day-to-day stay-at-home mom operations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and it went from there.
Yeah, starting at farmers market. I love hearing stories that start at farmers markets because those are one of my favorite places to visit as we travel.
Yes, they're such a great representation of the community that you're around. So if you do travel, if you go to a farmer's market, it's the best way to what I say, like, community sightsee, because you're seeing all different types of people, you're seeing the types of businesses that actually operate within that community. And then how the market is run or the things that they add or bring in really tells you a lot about just the community, and how it's run in general. So I love it.
Yeah. What has Elderberries taught you about healing both physically and emotionally? What have you learned from this process?
You know, I call this business 100% faith-led business because I don't know what I'm doing. All of my degrees are in criminology, I don't know anything about like actually running, a business or being a manager or like anything like that. So I say one, what it has taught me is I'm a lot even more strong in my faith than I was, even with like all the stuff we went through with Lucas, because that taught a lot me about my faith as well and to really trust and pray and be silent when you need to be. So it has taught me that emotionally. But it also, it also like teaches or reminds you. I don't want to say like teaches you because we all know it, but it reminds me that there's so much growing and to be found on this planet that's here to help us. And figuring out how to use it the correct way or, not doing it too much or something like that, is important. But some people forget that so many of our medicines or, anything were actually originally created from foods from a
Mhm.
certain chemical of that food. And then now it's just synthetically made in a lab because you can't grow enough of that food for the medicine that's needed, right? And I am all for medicine. Like I never want people to be like, oh my gosh, she's, some hippie tree hugger who like won't even take an antibiotic. Oh no. I very much believe that medicine is needed, and that's why we discovered it, right? And have created it. Like we definitely need it. But I also think that sometimes we rely on it too much when we really just need to rely on what God's given us, growing, in this world. And people always combat that with, well, why then was elderberries not even growing here, in what's now the United States way back when? So if someone had the flu, then they had no medicine. I said, actually, no, there's so many plants in, our area
Mhm.
geographically that grow that have these same flavonoids and polyphenols. And that's just the whole thing. Everywhere you go, there are different plants, foods, herbs, whatever that have the same type of properties within them that can be used to keep you healthy. Apple a day keeps the doctor away, kind of a thing. But now, because of the world and transportation and, exports and imports and all of that, all the different things grow everywhere when before we didn't have that. So when somebody would say, well, I can use this and I can use that and I can use this. No, just like pick one, pick the one you enjoy. It doesn't have to be elderberry specifically. We have so many different things that can help us in so many ways.
And what about the emotional part of that? What do you think that ties in?
I think I have a lot more empathy, like emotionally than I used to, because for the last, 7 years of this company, I have heard stories and I have heard, good stories and losses, of people's health journey or their family's health journey. But also on the business side of it, it's really, I feel like, they throw the word emotional intelligence around a lot now. And, as a kiddo, had no idea what that was, really didn't even know what it was in my young professional life. But I think now, my emotional intelligence, just for anything in general, like anything, it has taught me more about that and how to regulate that, how to realize not everything, can be the end of the world and things of that nature. So it, personally and professionally from the emotional realm, this like one berry has just taught me like, has just taught me like so much, over the last 7 years.
Yeah, and you're hitting on something there with emotional intelligence, right? And a lot of times we need wake up calls in our life to recognize maybe if we've become a little too robotic, if we've put up too many walls.
Yep. And like with this, because now Erin's Elderberries isn't just online, it's not just at a farmer's market. We have a retail store here in my hometown. We sell nationwide to small retailers and things of that nature. So a lot of the times I will now get stuck in that robotic because I've made that transition from, kind of founder to CEO, and I don't do a lot of the same things that I used to do when I first started the business. And one of the things I have always enjoyed the most is talking to people. I'm a very chatty, chatty person, can talk to anybody about anything. But sometimes I will lose that if I'm in my office too much or, I'm away for a couple of weeks. And to me, that really drains on me because the things that become hard in business, the financing, the staffing, just, a bad review online or, something like that, it like gets to you, and you're just like, man, like I could just go back to being a stay-at-home mom. Like, why don't I just do that? It would be so, so much easier. And whenever that happens, and I always say, like, things happen for a reason, but whenever that happens, I seem to either get a phone call, a text message, a Facebook message, an email, something out of the blue that will be a story about how Erin's Elderberries has helped them. Or if it's not a story, it's a thank you. Like, hey, walked into the shop today and the girls told me that you had been gone and you're working on something. And I just wanted to let you know how much you are valued and how much we appreciate you doing the things in your community that you do. And that just spins it all right back around, right? It just reminds you of why you're doing what you've chosen to do and kind of recharges your soul a little bit when those tough emotional things may be happening. And, nobody knows any of that's going on, right? Because as the owner, you're just like, well, it's my job, it's nobody else's job. It just always, that's always like a great thing to have, or people that just like reach out and express, either their appreciation or just a story for stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the next question or next thing I want to share with you. In researching you and preparing to bring you on the show, I noticed you've donated products to families battling pediatric cancer. I
Yes.
believe you have a scholarship fund.
Yes,
So,
we do.
how does giving back so much fuel your mission, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, it's like so hard to like just succinctly be able to answer that. Like I said, one, because this company, the foundation is to help, right? So originally it was to help other people become educated about elderberry and how it could help their children or their families. But I always tell everyone this job is my hobby. We're very fortunate that, when I became a stay-at-home mom, it was because my husband could support the family financially in that. And that's kind of still like how we do it. We make sure that Erin's Elderberries doesn't impact, any of our family stuff so that we are set for our future and our son's future. So really, when I come here, I don't call this a job, I call it my hobby. So I get to make decisions that way where some business owners don't get that privilege. So I take it upon myself that I have the duty, since I don't have to make hard decisions sometimes that would affect my mortgage or would affect my car payment or something like that, that becomes like my duty to then serve my community and give back to it. So the scholarship fund was something that I originally came up with about 2 years into my business as just a way to give back, because I had all these high schoolers at that time then working with me at the farmers market because I was expanding and they were working to earn money towards college. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could, create a scholarship foundation or a scholarship fund that would provide money towards a scholarship for someone in our community. So created that. And the program for children, I still haven't made it like an official formal program because it's something I'm working on trying to figure out how to do right.
Mhm.
But yes, if anyone contacts Erin's Elderberries through Facebook, email, like however, and their child has been diagnosed with any form of cancer, and their doctor is telling them, hey, since they can't get their flu shot, since they can't do this or they can't do that, we would like you to supplement them with elderberry. If they let us know that, we give them free elderberry for the duration that they need it, not just during treatment, but for however long that they need it. Medical care is ridiculously expensive, as everyone knows. So it's just a way that I try to help, at least alleviate one little thing. And I think that's where a lot of people who are trying to do good in the world get burdened or get bogged down is we see all the things in the world that's wrong, right? We
Mm.
see like all these people here need help, this needs help, this needs help. And it can become so just overwhelming that you get paralysis and you do nothing. So what I have always done, and it's just a way for me to be able to keep that paralysis from happening, is I say, okay, we will try to help one person. How can we do that? And we go from there. And then if it ends up helping more people, then that's what we do. So instead of saying, oh my gosh, how can we take all the financial burden from, a family away? It's how can we do just a little bit to
Mhm.
help? Like, and so doing, gifting elderberry to them is our, way of doing that. And we mail it. So we, have some from all parts of the United States and we mail it for free. They just let us know when they need more and we send it out. So we don't have them incur the shipping costs or anything like that. It's just a full donation, on our part.
It's so nice. And what do you think that's done for you as a business, knowing that you're in that space of just serving?
So for me, like I said, I think it's allowed me to grow in any way that I want. I don't say that people knowing I do that brings in customers. I don't necessarily think that. And also, that's not what I'm looking for. And that's probably also why we don't like advertise it super a lot because we don't want to portray like that image. Um, but it really helps you keep going with the help, if that makes sense. So when you do one thing and you find out that it is actually helping, it inspires and motivates you to do another thing. Like this year, today's Monday. It's officially being announced today. Um, we are announcing our nonprofit, our 501(c)(3) that has officially, started as a result of the original scholarship program. So and instead of it being just for a high schooler, this is to help literally anyone of any age with any need. So, you do something and, to help and you get good feedback or you understand that it is actually helping. And like I said, it just inspires you to figure out how to do more with the limited pennies, that you have. So that's how I think has helped the businesses. It's let us figure out how to help people more.
Yeah, and I would even say, Aaron, that it allows you to be in a space where people can see the values of the company and they feel good about spending their money because they know their money is going to a company that is also going to continue to do good. It's more than a transaction, right? It's a relationship. And I think for some of our entrepreneurs out there or people that are thinking about going into that, I very much agree with you. If I focus only on bottom line transactions, I miss a lot of the spirit of why I'm doing things.
Exactly. And they'll always go to big box stores or order some stuff online because it's genuinely just, I don't have time for this. And they just need it and it's ease. Would they prefer to go somewhere else if they had the time? 1000%. So if you can't create that culture of time, for people, then yeah, as entrepreneurs in business, you have to create a culture of something else. And I didn't understand that when like I said, when I started this company, because I didn't know anything about business. I still just operate my business solely on, is it going to help? Can we afford it? And can we do it right? And what I have learned now, since I've done a couple of leadership classes or, I have now done a couple of business classes, is people they very much look for that. They look to give their money to where they know their money is going to go further than just what they bought. And EE is very much, like that. We take that very seriously. But when I first started this company, because I didn't know what I was doing, I looked for a nationally recognized mentor program because I'd heard other entrepreneurs were doing it. It was free because, don't have any money when you're first starting out. So I applied, got accepted, had to drive into DC, which is about an hour and a half from here, depending on how traffic is. It could be 6 days of your life. But, had to drive in, had to get, pay for daycare for my child, while I was doing it. And I met with my mentor twice. And on the second one, and you're paired with someone who is in the same industry as you are, right? So they were in retail and all of that. And they looked at me at my second one and said, if you keep caring so much about the people and not caring more about the money, you're not going to make it a year. And I decided at that point, kind of like the doctor, I was like, I'm not gonna see you again. Like I was just like this obviously like isn't a good fit, right? Because especially if you're gonna have a mentor or a coach or like anything, you have to be on the same wavelength. You have to understand each other. And yes, I understand that I have to make enough money to pay my bills, to pay my staff, to keep the lights on. Yes, I get that. Very much understand that. But my company, I wanted it to be so much more about than just how much money or how many bottles of this stuff am I selling. So that was the last time we ever met. And here I am, almost 8 years later. So, I tell people, listen to people, get a mentor, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Other small businesses love to help other small businesses. However, though, if you get an inkling of a stomach gut feeling or anything like that, that your values, your core values for your company are not going to align with that person who is helping you, just say thank you. I appreciate it, not at this time, or well, let me swing back around or something like that, because the core values that you set for your company, if you're starting out or even if you don't know what they should be. I didn't know that. I had no idea that core values existed as a company when I started mine, but ours were very easy to write because they were exactly how we had been operating or how I founded this company when it was just me. And now it's 20, something people. So, as new entrepreneurs, I 1000% understand you have got to get a face with your audience or your customers, and you have got to let them know like why they should choose you. Obviously you're doing what you're doing for a reason because you're the best at it. You're using better ingredients, better, something. Tell that story, educate those customers and let them know that.
How do you Okay, so let's just stay on that for a second. How do you tell that story? Because I get this a lot without being arrogant, right? So, like, it's a lot of times it's easier for me to tout Erin and Erin's Elderberries than it is to
Mhm.
tout my own business. So, how do you balance that storytelling of being humble yet also letting people know, like, we are the best?
Yeah, so that oh God, that's a real like problem, right? Because I am very much one of those people. going back to like my bureau days, I'm in the shadows. If you knew I was there, I wasn't doing my job. So having to be the face of something and being really like, hi, look at me, we're over here, come buy this is definitely not, in my wheelhouse. Yes, I like to talk to people, obviously, but I don't like to talk to people about myself.
Mm.
But one thing that I think that you can do, or, even what I've realized, like I kind of do to get comfortable about that is I use others to talk about myself. So I talk about other families or other people I have met or other people I have helped somehow along the way and kind of use their story through my voice to share with that. And it's not, we're being, because I never want to be seen as arrogant, even though, like, yes, I do use the best quality of this and the best of that because I have researched it to the nth degree and I can tell you this is the best. But you can't like be seen as arrogant, right? Nobody's going to like that. And I also don't want to be seen that
Mhm.
way. So, I have used others to help kind of tell that story or us really focus on others. And when you focus on others and others do well and others succeed and things like that, and people ask them, who did this? Who helped with this? What was your pivotal part or your pivotal moment? And they say, Erin or Erin's elderberries syrup, then it's right there for you. And then we can share that. We can, show that. So it's a way to also work and collaborate and coordinate, with others, as well. Because I tell everyone all the time, because I do small business mentoring also. And I tell them, all the time, I am 90,000% happier when I get to share your wins than when I get to share mine. I enjoy it more,
Right.
like, because I am just truly, truly happy for how well you're doing, that you took some advice or you thought about things and rearranged some things. I love that. It makes me so happy, even happier than if I have my own individual success, because your success is also, mine because, I helped with that.
Yeah. What's something coaching entrepreneurs that you tell them or you find yourself repeating over and over? What's a lesson you find yourself saying a lot?
A couple of things. It's one, trust yourself, trust the gut feeling, because that is there innately, for a reason. Two is always find a mentor.
Mm.
Like, I did not find a great one to start with, but I have met so many on my journey. And what most small businesses, especially the ones starting out, don't realize, because they think that, say they make lemonade, for example, if they make lemonade and there's another lemonade seller, that they're automatically enemies. I'm like, no, it's the perfect way for collaboration to help each other, and things like that. Now, don't go in there and be like, oh, hi, I'm the new like lemonade seller and I'm going to do this and that and seem all arrogant and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But small businesses love to work with each other if they're the right type of small business. And if you walk up to another small business and you're like, hey, I see that, and this is like true stories that happened to me, you're shipping XYZ. How are you doing this and offering it for $5 like on your website? I'm at $19 and there's no way my customers are going to pay that. And that's like what happened when I first started. And that woman and her husband, I'm still friends with them like today. She's like, "Oh, let me show you what I do. It's this neat trick." And I'm like, "Okay." And it wasn't anything that was, like illegal. You're not like skirting the system. I mean, it was, and I'm like, "How did I not think of that?" But, she helped me with one of the most crucial aspects of getting my product nationwide in shipping, because my customers can now afford to ship it and I didn't have to charge, that
Yeah.
much money, or I didn't have to pay $20 out of my own pocket to be able to ship it to someone. So small businesses love to help other small businesses because they don't want you to go through what they went through. They want to see you succeed. There's not enough of us that start and keep on at that 5 year mark. And we all want that statistic, to change. So I always tell people, listen to your gut, find mentors, but don't be afraid to talk to other small businesses. Like you may have a mentor that's just about finance or, taxes or something, or a mentor that's just about, sourcing bulk ingredients. You can have all different types of mentors in the small business realm. It doesn't have to be like just one. Now, you may become like BFFs, with one of them because y'all really click, but you can have different mentors for different reasons that you call upon each other, and stuff like that. So I always tell people, don't box yourself in and feel so alone because there are people willing to welcome you into, the small business world.
Mm. And I love that message that if you see another lemonade stand, that's not competition, that's collaboration. Because there is so much abundance in the world, and there's usually enough that both businesses can be successful.
Yeah.
But having somebody that's also in your niche also forces you to grow, which is another good thing, right?
Yeah, it can challenge you to do new things, not be like kind of complacent. And one of the small businesses that I work with, she always says there's enough of the pie for everybody. And it's very true. And especially like in our area where there's small, it's very small, kind of everybody knows everybody. The more you work and are known to work with others, the more you're invited to work with others. So if an event needs two lemonade people, they're going to choose the ones that are known to have a really great rapport with each other, may do special collaborations or drink menus, with each other and stuff like that. Whereas if you're known as one who is kind of more standoffish, kind of sees everyone as competition, then you won't be invited to do stuff like that. So it opens like collaboration just opens the door for so much. And, you may use a different type of sugar than the other one does, and everyone's preferences for everything is different, which is why there's like 17 different types of toothpaste. Like everyone has what they like, and you don't have what everyone likes, but you will find the people who like what you have,
And you got
and they will stick with you.
and you got to become okay with that, right? You got to become okay that not you're not going to be for everybody all the time.
Right. And a lot of companies do like have that issue. They think that to be able to sell the most, they have to widen their net as wide as they can. Whereas, research and everything else shows the more you niche down, actually the more successful and higher sales you have because you are going towards a specific group and serving a specific group that may not have very many choices, outside of that. So, yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it
Yeah.
works.
What I like about that too is you're identifying how you're a unique solution to their problem. Right? If I cast
Exactly.
such a wide net, I don't really know what the problem is that I'm solving because everybody has a different one. But when I niche down, now I can say, okay, I solve this problem for this group of people.
Yeah. And if you have something that solves lots of different problems for different types of people, then it's your job to market that. So you don't just market like, hey, and here's like all the lists of what it's good for. You market different things at different times, towards that niche. We have to do that, here at Erin's Elderberries because elderberry and the other products that I make can be used in a whole host of different scenarios. We don't just list those out. I mean, we do sometimes on a social media post or something, but we will do targeted, specific education on this problem. Do you have this problem? Let's educate you on how this can help. So you have to be able to kind of keep everything under one umbrella, but then also understand you need to reach those niche markets as well. And those niche markets are not going to see you within the bubble of everything else that you can provide.
For sure. Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can our audience follow along on your journey and learn more about your business?
So if they're on Instagram or Facebook, we're at Erin's Elderberries. Same for both. Our website is www.erins with ERINS elderberries.com. And you can always like reach out, to us if you have any questions. I love to educate, as you know, so I'm always happy to, help people learn anything they need to know about keeping their family healthy.
I love it. Erin, before I let you go, I have one last question for you.
I'm
Looking
gonna say
back,
that looks like it's gonna be a hard one. Like
no,
just
no,
seeing your face, I'm like, oh, it's a trick question.
no trick questions. Reflective. I like to end with a reflective. So, looking back at the moments of uncertainty when your son was sick, your career was shifting, nothing felt certain. If Erin today could talk to the Erin back then, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that it's going to be hard. You're going to want to quit like 17 times, but because you are a determined individual, you won't, and it'll all be fine. And that's why when you ask me like the one word about myself, I've been called stubborn, I've been called like a lot of things, but determined is probably how I describe myself, and I always understand that. So I would just tell her, like, just trust in you and what you know you can do, and you'll be fine.
Erin, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been an honor to share your story with our community, and we wish you the best, my friend.
Thank you, and same back to you.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.